Hello again. So I believe we're episode 5 of A Week with Will. What we're going to do today is just going to be a bit of a bumper episode because of the Euros final sort of being on the Sunday. So I've had to sort of try and organise and sort of plan stuff. So once again, apologise for being a little bit late. My plan is to always try and upload on something on the Monday. However, I've sort of had quite a busy calendar, quite busy sort of couple of days, and so it's being released today. So apologise, but we'll get into it. So this will be a double bill, double header, all in one. Maybe looking at another football video later in the week, or partly sort of based on the fact because of the result, which I'll get onto later. I'd like to move on nice and quickly from said championships and then start getting back into the pattern of doing Monday, Thursday, with the option of potentially doing more things, more sort of videos, once sort of more ideas and more sort of planning can sort of be put forward. However, the calendar at the moment is quite busy, so once again, apologies. So, let's get into the week. So the week it's been okay. Like, I suppose it's been a very average week at work. It was only working the 4 days of the week. So primarily been working, had a couple of days, 1.5 days on site with a Measure Building survey. So I'll be looking at getting the 3D scanner out, and I believe I was looking at floor plans and street elevations. So the floor plans of this is a sort of very secured building, so had to bring a power drill to get into it as abandoned due to some of the damage which was sort of undertaken on it. So it needed to be secure from sort of vagrants or other people breaking in. So that's one of the few times I've actually had to use my power drill, ironically. So it's now it's fine getting that out and then actually being able to get into the building, which structurally did not feel the most secure or the safest, i.e. sort of some of the areas of the building sort of been damaged through sort of damp and some through fire, sort of missing walls and sort of a lot of damage there, which means you sort of have to be extra vigilant, very mindful of where you're stepping. Obviously, I think when you go to any site when you're working, you should always be mindful of your own. Well, I suppose in life you should always be mindful of where you're going and not to step on something silly or do something stupid for minding your own well-being and your own safety. So obviously, always be mindful of that. And then I was having a look at street view elevations. Now, when doing a Measure Building survey, building elevations and floor plans sort of go hand in hand. For at least my area of the work, to what I was doing, so other people on site, I was looking at a street view. So essentially setting up the kit along the street, not going into someone else's land, obviously legal, would be slightly frowned upon, in order to get the best sort of detail possible, sort of up and down the streets or the areas to which the client themselves are interested, which isn't too bad, thankfully. Well, one of the worries and type of concerns over doing these sorts of things is that I'm not necessarily the most social and outgoing person in the world, so I sort of don't enjoy necessarily the conversations I had with people walking past, asking what's going on. It's for people being curious, which in itself isn't a crime, it's not an issue, but it's not I don't know, like I'm not that comfortable talking with strangers overly that much. Sort of maybe it's just a safety thing from being as a kid. So I don't. I tried to nudge the conversation over, just wanting to get it done, to get back to work. As like I'm there at a site, I may have driven so far to get there. I want to get the work done, get back, get it all sorted, go home. So if someone extends that, it's going to make me anxious and slightly frustrated. So thankfully I avoided too many of these conversations, of making sure I've got the work done. And then for the rest of the week, it was a case of drawing up all of this information. There was quite a lot of information with sort of several people sort of surveying the area. And so I'm hoping everything will be fine when I go back to work. However, having left on the Friday, there was still work to do. So I'm hoping that everyone at the office manages to do that without my presence, hopefully. But no, we'll see. Hopefully that'll be fine. And then I simply just move on to the next project when I'm back, because obviously I'm off this current week due to friend being over, and I'm off the week after as a me sort of thing to get my head straight, to do some of those nagging little jobs around the house, make sure everything sort of gets done there. So I'm being able to have a bit of fun, but sort of being productive and trying to get a bit of a balance going with that, as it were. So, as I mentioned, only a 4-day week for me. So I had the Friday booked off, which was odd jobs around the house and prep, I suppose, for friends coming over. As I had a friend to pick up from Stansted on the Friday, and so it was sort of spent organising everything for them, because they'll be staying at a log cabin sort of within Suffolk. I believe, actually no, I'm not going to say the name of it because that would be a bit weird. Which is only about 10-15 minutes drive from myself, which just needed a bit of prep, because it's self-catering, so obviously needs his own food and everything like that sorted out. Got all that, rested up, spent the Saturday together, just lunch, helping them get their bearings with things, as it were, and then had the slightly longer trip to Heathrow from Suffolk to pick up sort of other friends, to which was a very much sort of a longer drive, and sort of trying to, obviously I appreciate my other friends' sort of company, as I think a long drive by yourself can get a bit dull, and I think when you're sort of driving later at night, you want to have a friend there to help keep you awake, to help keep you alert, as it were, as sort of, well, another means of doing that, as well as caffeine or coffee or an energy drink or something like that. So that sort of obviously helped manage to pick up the friends. Thankfully, in all these drives, having gone through some of the arguably most difficult roads in the UK, like the M25, things have been pretty good, pretty comfortable, and so managed to get back to the cabin sort of late. Let them sort of, let the friends there sort of lay in the next day, help them get their bearings, and so to go out for a nice Sunday roast, a nice Toby Carvery, which is always enjoyable, as I myself don't often have an English roast on Sunday, so much as I do enjoy them, because it's only really me here, so there's not a need or a want to sort of have to make that much of an effort sort of food wise, I suppose, in order to sort of actually have one. So unless people want to start inviting me around to Sunday roast, I suppose it's not a regular occurrence, but it's got to be one of my favourite meals. Is just a bit of meat, roast potatoes, as long as they're done properly, a bit of gravy, a little bit of veg, lovely, not a problem. So from that, from not a problem to a problem, we had the Euros final, which we all watched together on the sort of later that day, which I'll discuss in a moment. So I just want to wrap up the week with Will. So I've got a lot of things planned sort of going on next week. In fact, I'm going to be off doing some of those things shortly, pretty much straight after this. So there will be sort of a lot more things going on, a lot more things happening the next week. Yes. So for my song, my happy sort of song for the week, I'm picking an artist I've already picked before, but I naturally think they just do good happy songs, or at least they do from my point of view. So the song is Somebody Loves You by the Snuts. So I had them as a band mentioned sort of previously on the first video. Really enjoy them. It's just anything they do, I think sometimes gets very happy, sometimes very rocky, but whatever they do, it just clicks, it just works for me. So I'd like to thank you very much, Week with Will. Just switch over to football now. Cool, back again. So we'll do a weekly football roundup here. Although I suppose it's potentially much the Euros roundup. We'll round up everything of the Euros now. We'll have a quick go through of the final, a quick look at the team of the tournament, and I've tried to quickly work out a flop team of the tournament. I've not put enough stats and thought behind sort of some of these things. This is my personal opinion over these matters, so try not to get at me too much in the comments, but I will appreciate any feedback should you have it. Thank you very much. So, obviously it was the final on Sunday, and obviously we didn't do too well. We lost it sort of 2-1 within the normal time. So I'll have a look over the tactics potentially at the start, see how we went into the game. So this, as a team, was essentially the same team that played in the semi-finals, with Luke Shaw coming in for Trippier because he's now a bit more fit in his natural left back. The Spanish team sort of went back to how they played against Germany, as they had several players suspended for their France game. So people like Le Monde and Dani Carvajal were injured, were suspended for those games. Le Monde due to multiple yellow cards, Carvajal for a straight red. Well, a red card. I don't think it was a straight red card. So essentially, all the teams would have been at least what the manager's opinion of full strength for those little games. Now, throughout the game, I suppose it was an even-ish first half. The Spain dominated the possession, which should have been expected. Nat Jika kept sort of saying and talking to sort of people I was surrounded by when watching it. And we always looked like we were wanting to counter when you've got sort of the pace of someone like Bukayo Saka there, sort of as an outlet, and someone that's obviously has been playing well in some of these sort of knockout games. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to sort of spring sort of enough attacks, enough clear-cut chances throughout the first half. The slight sort of concern would be that even if we did, it would be one man bursting a gut, getting forward, and others not necessarily sort of getting there themselves. I think with Harry Kane in particular being someone that continuously wanting to drop deep to get involved in play, and not the conventional number 9 player being able to just be in the box, sort of react to anything going on, able to just put the ball in the back of the net, essentially. However, to do the second half, the team not being fully switched on, Nico Williams managed to sort of have a free run through the left-hand side, to which he managed to score sort of quite comfortably. Southgate, in fairness to him, did react to this, bringing on substitutes, bringing on Cole Palmer, obviously making the difference with a lovely finish. But Spain just sort of managed to freshen things up as well, sort of bringing on some fresh faces, sort of bringing off Morata for Oyarzabal, to which obviously made the difference. A lot of freedom down that Spanish left side once again. Marc Cucurella sort of playing the ball in to Oyarzabal, who finished off the game. So, yeah. Now, looking at the game, it looked, I mean, you're sort of trying to work out where you sort of, it's won and lost. And I still think the main threat from the Spanish was always going to be through Yamal and Williams, as they've been Spain's star players throughout the tournament. I believe it was Yamal that sort of set Nico Williams through for the first goal. So these wingers naturally seem to have the beating of us, as it were. I think Luke Shaw did sort of manage to cover Yamal for most of the game fairly well, considering his fitness levels and the fact that it's his first proper start in quite a while. So I wouldn't ever get too critical of Luke Shaw. However, if I was going to get critical of a defender, it would be Kyle Walker. If I'm seeing both goals, both lots of play coming down their left, our right, I'm looking at where's the right back. If that left winger's coming in, where is the right back? Is he getting sucked in? Where is he positionally? Who's marking him? Because he had you almost had a free rein going to get the shot off. Cucurella managed to get the ball in without sort of too much of an issue. People sort of looked at Kyle Walker's pace being something sort of to utilise sort of defensively, but I'll be honest, I didn't see it. Well, I saw him with pace, but I didn't see him using it in the same way that he normally does, because he usually holds himself to a higher standard, as it were. So I definitely think there was an issue from that point of view. I think I'm still a bit miffed over the inclusion of Phil Foden. I still don't think this is a team that works with him in it. I think you might need to look at potentially changing the team around to fit him in, or something along those lines. But he cannot play in the positions he has been playing in. I know it's been tweaked and he looked sharper against the Netherlands. However, I don't think he looked very good this game. I think otherwise it just felt like it's a space where someone like Cole Palmer could start and make a difference from the off. Harry Kane was also another player who wasn't sort of very fun. As I mentioned previously, he's someone that usually likes to drop deep, to come into play and be involved. He's dropping deep, you're not coming into play, he's not doing enough. So you've either got to be getting on the ball when you're coming deep to contribute to the team going forward, or being a presence in the box as an option to get, when you get the ball in the box, he's there to get the goal, but he's not. So, I mean, that's sort of how it is. I mean, I suppose I did get my predictions right, even if I didn't necessarily want the prediction to be right, with my head winning there with the Spain sort of 2-1 win, as it were. It's a bit sad, it's a bit disappointing, I suppose, from a neutral perspective, that the Spanish probably did deserve the win. I suppose they've been playing better football throughout the tournament, if I was to sort of, not show any bias whatsoever. But it's obviously, as an England fan, it's very disappointing. And so you sort of left to question what will happen with the team now. Is there going to be any potential drops or changes to the management? So I'm not too sure on there. So let me know in the comments what you think of the England team going into the future. Do you think there should be a new manager? If so, who are you thinking? Should there be any players dropped, any players included from the squad that weren't sort of previously? And sort of try and sort of get some ideas together over what you think can be done to improve the team, as to stop us from being nearly men to the men that actually win it. So what I want to go into now, I've got two quick sections to get through. So I've made my team of the tournament and my flop of the tournament. Now, in both situations, I've gone for a 4-3-3. I've got a couple of shout-outs for some of the players that didn't make it into my team, but obviously I thought did very well or did very naff. Cool. So, for the team of the tournament, in goal, I've looked at the Georgian goalkeeper Mamedashvili. I believe, although I don't necessarily have the numbers with me, he managed to prevent more XG than many of the other goalkeepers. He naturally was someone that's always going to face a lot more traffic. Being in a Georgian team was not necessarily strong defensively. He spent a lot of traffic. He got clean sheets in the games that he needed to, like the Portugal game, and he put himself about very well, and he's put himself about into the shop window as well, with Valencia post-tournament having spoken about the actual price tag and trying to set it early. The teams have been linked with him already, including people like Newcastle. So we'll wait and see if anything happens from that. But I think his standing's only gone up from this tournament, sort of becoming a sort of very much respected goalkeeper, on one to sort of keep an eye on sort of going into the future. So my back four, I'll go from right back, centre backs to left back. So I've got Jules Koundé at right back. I've got Pepe, Marc Guéhi, and Marc Cucurella. Now Jules Koundé, I wanted to include someone from the French back line, as I believe that the French were sort of very strong defensively throughout most of the tournament, and I think he was one player that never put a foot wrong. And sort of looking throughout other right backs, I can't necessarily say the same for sort of many of the others. I mean, you can make an argument for Kimmich, but I think Koundé has been more reliable as a defensive right back. Kimmich is a player that he's good at progressing the ball. He's good with the ball at the feet. I'm not looking at him as a defender. I'm looking at him as I still have a look at him as a midfielder, to be perfectly honest. And centre back pairing of Guéhi and Pepe. Pepe being one of the oldest players in the tournament to have played, I believe he's the ripe old age of 41, gave himself a very good account of himself. Portugal were very strong defensively. I believe it was his nous and experience as to why they were strong defensively, sort of just showing, I mean, maybe he doesn't have all the physical attributes that he once had, but he still has that tenacity and that sort of drive and that sort of just defensive know-how, as it were. And the next to him is Marc Guéhi, who I think people are unsure of the England centre-back pairing. And I think Marc Guéhi has put himself in the shop window very much so throughout this tournament. I think he's been very strong and reliable, and many people would make the case for him being one of England's best players of the tournament. He never put a foot wrong. He always put himself about, even if John Stones was looking a little bit rusty. Guéhi was always sort of there, sort of very much dependable. If people were worried over losing Harry Maguire, and I think Marc Guéhi stepped up and put a real case for starting regularly for England, sort of going into any future tournaments, because he's still very young. He's very experienced, having sort of several seasons in the Premier League now, and he just looked absolutely amazing. And so my left back, I went for Marc Cucurella because I don't think I ever expected him to start. I looked at Alex Grimaldo with the season at Bayer Leverkusen, with the threats he had going forwards, sort of the amount of sheer assists and goals that he was naturally going to start. And so they went for Cucurella on the basis that he's more of a left back than a left wing back, and sort of is a good passing hub. Obviously got the assist for the winner in the final, but he's been a bit of a revelation there. He's sort of someone that, I mean, you look at him in the Premier League, he's always looked a bit naff, I think, since he's sort of put that Chelsea shirt on. He started to look a little bit sharper towards the end of the season, sort of in an inverted role, but his technical ability is not in question, and that was sort of something that really helped that left-hand side with him and Nico Williams forming a very strong partnership. Now, for the midfield, it's going to be quite boring, arguably, but I went for the whole of the Spanish three. So, Rodri, who was given the player of the tournament, Dani Olmo, and Fabian Ruiz. Now, Rodri, he almost goes without saying, I think he is one of the best players in the world. I don't think he's not an attacking player who's going to look at the stats and say, oh, there's many goals, there's many assists, but he's someone that reads the game better than almost anyone I've ever seen, well, like in the last few years, because he always seems to find space, knows where to play the ball, sort of a natural sort of hub, and the fact that he's only lost like one game in like the last 2-3 years where he's actually started and playing speaks volumes. It's very understandable why. And I went for Fabian Ruiz and Dani Olmo. I think have made sort of strong contributions, sort of assists and goals wise. Fabian Ruiz sort of towards the start of the season or start of the tournament, and Dani Olmo towards the end, who I don't believe really originally started in the main 11, naturally became an impact player and became very key to getting those sort of clutch goals, in particular sort of against France in the semi-final to get through. So have a quick look at the front three. I was very unsure of the striker, as I don't think there's been naturally that many strikers that have scored like a lot of goals. So yeah, I'm not sort of having read sort of across the top goal scorers, I'm not keen on necessarily putting the Georgian striker or Harry Kane, for example, as I believe that they've had good games, but they've also had bad games. So my front three is Lamine Yamal on the right, Cody Gakpo in the middle, and Nico Williams on the left. I think Yamal and Williams, it almost goes without saying that both of them have been flying up and down that wing, and they're one of the main reasons why Spain have done so well. Their ability to create chances and to score chances, having shown no fear. Sort of both of them obviously being very young players, clearly making the difference, having combined for the first goal in the final and combined on several occasions throughout the tournament. Those sort of players without fear can make a real difference, and considering their ages, you sort of think, where else can this sort of Spain team go when you've got players like that who can be around for another 10-15 years without any threat or worry. I picked Cody Gakpo for the central striker role. Although sometimes he does sort of play on the left, he can play as the striker. He was one of the top goal scorers in the tournament. I believe, obviously, with the Netherlands getting to the semi-final, they should have some representation. And I think anything good that came through the Netherlands, attacking-wise, always seemed to come through him. It was his sort of driving runs going forward, willing to take on the man, willing to sort of just trying to get his shots away. Obviously didn't have a very good game against England, but I thought throughout the tournament otherwise, I thought he was very, very good. There's a few shout-outs to sort of other players who haven't quite made it due to my own sort of preference. So I'd shout-outs to Kobbie Mainoo, who I think was brilliant for England and looks like he can cement a strong partnership with Declan Rice going forward. I think the balance there sort of really works as someone that's willing to drive forward and wants to get the ball forward and sort of get the team going, as it were. I think works very well with the defensive nous of Declan Rice. I wanted to have a look at sort of William Saliba as well. Having mentioned Jules Koundé, I thought I'd mention Saliba as well. So I believe the French, though they had a difficult group stage, they also managed to maintain a very strong defence. I believe he was one of the reasons why it's taken a while for Didier Deschamps to come round to realise that, hey, this guy's actually pretty good. Thankfully he has now, or worryingly he has now, because I don't think he's going to get budged out of that French team anytime soon. He's still very young, and I only expect him to get better in the next few seasons with Arsenal and with France. As well as that, I'd like to have a quick shout to Jamal Musiala. I thought his technical ability and his close control, particular games sort of within the group stage and sort of some of the later games, was just amazing. I've not necessarily seen him play that much in the Bundesliga. I don't necessarily watch the Bundesliga very regularly, but there's always a lot of hype around him, and having watched the games, it's sort of easy to see why. So I wanted to do a flops team. Now this is going to be slightly more controversial, but we'll give it a quick go. So in goal, we've got Andrei Lunin. I thought for the Ukrainian goalkeeper, on several occasions, particularly the game against Romania, he looked awful. I don't think he's not a goalkeeper that looks very comfortable collecting the crosses. He looks like he could be scored against from corners, and I think a lot of the time Romania were almost just trying to get the shot away, just knowing that if it's on target, they've got half a chance. someone who plays for Real Madrid, you expect them to be a bit better, to be a bit. It's one of the biggest teams in the world, and you sort of wonder how he's sort of. I wonder how he's sort of getting into the team. I think with Thibaut Courtois coming back, then I wouldn't expect to see too much of Lunin sort of within the future. Now I've got a back four: Kyle Walker, right back; Dragusin, sort of the Romanian centre back, plays for Spurs; Josko Gvardiol, centre back; and Alexander Zinchenko, left back. I think Kyle Walker and Gvardiol, these are players that I'm used to seeing at City being absolutely sort of top level. Kyle Walker in sort of particular, someone that's people will argue saying, oh, he's the best right back around and so on like that. But like this has not been a good tournament for him. He has higher standards than that, and I expect him to be better than that. And I think he expects himself to be better than that. I don't know whether sort of issues off the field are things that might be something bothering him, but he did not look up for this tournament. Maybe it sort of suits better into a Pep Guardiola system. I'm not too sure. Yes, so Gvardiol, I'll be a bit more lenient to on the basis that I think there's more quality in the England squad. Then Croatia had a tougher group, but I still expected them to do more within that group, to potentially sort of get the win over Italy, which obviously didn't happen. But he's supposed to be the next generation going forward for Croatia. Maybe it's the ageing midfield in front of him which has finally sort of shown what it's like. But I don't think he gave a strong account of himself, in particular because he had such a strong end to the last season, scoring clutch goals for Manchester City, being a strong threat from set plays. I did not see that at all from him this tournament. Dragusin, maybe he's a little bit harsh because he's not as big a name as some of the other players I've got, but he was the big player for Romania, and I think in particular in that Netherlands game, people could argue how he went Spursy, sort of some sloppy play at the back, sort of giving them the Netherlands the opportunity to sort of get the goals and sort of kick on from that really. And then the left back I mentioned is Zinchenko. I've obviously mentioned I've got two Ukrainian players in here. Don't know there's not anymore. Which was a very disappointed sort of by, as I believed that wasn't necessarily the toughest group, and they could have got through that and given a better account of themselves. As I believe they do have some strong players. As I've already mentioned, Zinchenko, as I rate him as a good player, but I don't think he did sort of. The team did enough, and maybe I'm putting it on his shoulders a little bit. I expected a little bit more. Now I've got a midfield three of John McGinn, Jorginho, and Antoine Griezmann. Now, maybe it's a bit harsh with John McGinn. However, I wanted to have some Scottish representation here, as I believe they did a very good job through the qualifiers and looked very strong. Sort of McGinn, Scott McTominay, for example. These are players that were amazing in qualifying and played above and beyond, and I sort of expected them to give a better account of themselves. Obviously, the German game, you could argue, was quite hard, but you look at some of the other games within their group, like Switzerland, for example, I expected a bit more fight. It felt like they could. The quality was there, I think, to have gotten out of the group, but it's just not enough. And then I'm looking at someone like him who is such a good technical player in his day and an amazing player for Aston Villa, but just didn't show it in the tournament. So Jorginho as well. I wanted to have some Italian representation throughout the tournament because I believe Italy, there should have been a bit. I felt like they should have been expecting a little bit more. Maybe that was unfounded because of the changes to the squad with several players retiring from the previous Euros. Italy being the previous winners, I wanted to give them a better account of themselves. So I'm looking at someone like Jorginho. I think Italy's midfield, they didn't seem to know what to do against Switzerland. Switzerland seemed to have their number, and I'd like to think that an experienced head should be able to sort of get the team controlled, calm, and play their way. Didn't see that from Jorginho. And then I've also picked Antoine Griezmann as the other midfielder. So he plays as the attacking midfielder for France. He, in previous tournaments, so much good has come through Griezmann. He has been almost like an outlet. He's the one sort of playing the ball to those sort of forward players, to the Mbappes, to the Dembélés, and something happening. I did not see a very sort of good creative side from the French at all, with many of their goals coming from the penalty spot or own goals. It's just needing that little bit more, really. Now I've got a front three of Cristiano Ronaldo on the right, Romelu Lukaku as my striker, and Phil Foden as my left winger. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo, maybe this is a little bit more of a harsh inclusion, maybe due to the lofty standards he sets himself, but Portugal I didn't think looked very bright going forwards, and I think someone sort of taking the penalty, the free kick, someone to take everything, wanting to be the centre focus, you need to be taking those chances. Otherwise, if that's not happening, you need to change it up. Something's not right. You need to be able to take him off. So maybe this isn't necessarily all laid at him. Maybe I'm looking at the manager, Martinez, been needing to show a bit more cojones, as it were, in order to change if it's not working. If he's not working, regardless of what he says, you're the manager. The manager, you've got to do what he says at the end of the day. I don't, regardless of sort of the cult status that Cristiano Ronaldo might have. Romelu Lukaku I've included because I think in the last couple of tournaments, his XG is ridiculous. He's someone that has the chances, he has a lot of chances, doesn't really seem to score them enough or take them enough. I think he could have easily, if he took his chances, been one of the top goal scorers in the tournament. But I don't know whether it's the big occasion getting to him now or what his sort of level is. I'd be curious to see what happens to him over the summer, as he's someone that's going back to Chelsea, having had his loan spell at Roma, potentially looking at a move to the Saudi League or a return to Italy. Not too sure yet. We'll wait to see how that one happens. And I've also picked Phil Foden as the left winger. Now, Phil Foden has just come off the back of being the Premier League Player of the Year and was a very good player throughout the season, was one of the reasons why Manchester City won the league. However, he's a player that seemed to be like, well, because he's the Player of the Year, he needs to be fit into the team. He doesn't need to be fit into the team. You need to work out a team that works and you get the best out of the other players. You're trying to square pegs and round holes, as it were. All these amazing players you're trying to put in doesn't necessarily mean it works, and Foden was one that definitely didn't work. He's not a left winger. You want to play him in the middle or don't play him. Simple as that. I think there's only lofty standards. Expect more. I don't know whether this is down to the basis that he plays a very strong set system under Pep Guardiola. He doesn't really have that with Gareth Southgate. So I'm not saying to kick him out of the England squad altogether, but I'm saying to try and use him in the correct positions, as I think he had a good half against the Netherlands, but that was about it. I expect more. Cool. So that's it. It's a very long video. Thank you for staying with me. That was a bit of a bumper one. So I will catch all of you later in the week, hopefully. Thank you very much. See you later.